Hello, everyone. It's great to be here with you virtually, and I'm very excited to be a part of this discussion. Here at the University of California, we're doing our best, guided by our faculty and other university stakeholders, to drive the transition to open access for research published by UC-affiliated authors. We feel we've had a good round of success so far, with a total of 10 agreements that we call transformative agreements. And now about a third of the articles published by UC corresponding authors are eligible to be made open access under one of these agreements. As we've grown this program from our first agreement with Cambridge University Press in 2019 to our current volume, a focus on technological frameworks to support these types of agreements has become more and more critical to us. This is particularly true in our case, where a part of our strategy for financial stability is to engage authors in the payment process through what we've termed the multi-payer model. This is something that we see as potentially sustainable for large research-intensive institutions in North America. Under this model, at a very basic level, authors who accept the open access default are shown an OA publishing fee, often discounted from the list price. The library pays the first $1,000 of this fee, and then the author is asked if they have research funds available to pay the remainder. If they do, then they pay the remainder using those funds. And if the author does not have funds available, the library pays the remainder. In this way, we're supporting every author, particularly those that don't have funds available to pay for open access publishing. But we're also asking each author to engage with the economics of publishing and to contribute funds if they're able. This model creates a couple of requirements in the workflow which are not in more traditional read and publish agreements, including the ability to present these questions to authors and to move them through the workflow appropriately depending on their answers, and the ability to split payments between the library and the author and aggregate costs accordingly. So as you might imagine, having 10 different agreements means the potential for 10 different implementations of the multi-payer workflow, 10 different sets of data reports, 10 different publisher systems to interact with for affiliation approval, and so on. Clearly, this is not scalable. Without developing some ability to consolidate processes across publishers, the work required to administer these agreements from the institution's perspective will become untenable, and the author experience will be inconsistent from publisher to publisher. Fortunately, services are starting to be developed which can help us extend these agreements more widely and grow our program with the confidence that we can support it. Two services in particular, CCC's RightsLink platform and the Open Access Switchboard, have already started to provide a repurposable infrastructure which allows us to more easily ramp up our agreements. These two systems have somewhat different targets. RightsLink has developed a strategy to implement the multi-payer model, which I just described, for participating publishers, helping to alleviate the technological challenges that publishers might face in implementing this model, and also making a more consistent experience for authors. 3 of our agreements now use RightsLink for at least a part of their implementation. And then the OA Switchboard facilitates efficient communication between the publisher and institution, in particular around confirming author affiliations and reporting publication and financial data. The ability to consolidate these interaction points will greatly improve our efficiency in managing these agreements and will also drastically lessen the technological ask of potential publisher partners. 5 of the publishers that we have agreements with are launch customers or founding partners of the OA Switchboard, which is just getting started on implementation this year. So from the publisher perspective, I see all of this as being particularly beneficial for smaller publishers, putting them on a more equal footing with the Elseviers and Springer Natures in this arena. That's not to take anything away from Elsevier or Springer Nature, both of whom we in California have had positive experiences with in collaborating to tailor their in-house systems for our implementation. But not every publisher has the resources available to do that work, and we at CDL don't have the resources available to engage on that level with every publisher. Extensible, repurposable, and easily implementable shared infrastructure make this possible for all publishers in a way it otherwise wouldn't be. And that's also good for librarians and the Academy in general, who benefit from a diverse ecosystem of publishers and who often want to continue supporting their scholarly societies and nonprofit publishers in particular. This is therefore a key piece to global transition to open access. For us in the libraries, and particularly here at the California Digital Library, focusing on shared infrastructure helps us in several ways that are critical to the success of our efforts. First, as we expand our portfolio of agreements and get new agreements up and running, Calling on these existing systems to support our workflows means devoting far fewer resources to custom one-off implementations, allowing us to stretch our own efforts and limited bandwidth further. Second, as we oversee our transformative agreements, using a single system to administer or gather data and reporting from multiple agreements makes our work much more efficient. Then, as we discuss potential agreements with publishers, the ability to refer to existing infrastructure that they can implement makes the prospect of an agreement much more real and much less daunting for them. And finally, as we advocate for other institutions to join our push for global access to research, particularly those that we think may benefit from the multi-payer model, the presence of existing infrastructure lowers the activation energy needed to help institutions engage in agreements like these. Thanks very much for your attention, and I look forward to the discussion to follow.
Hello everyone, and thanks for having me today. It's great being part of such a great panel together with those marvelous colleagues, and to review the road behind and the possible path ahead of transformative agreements. I'm very much looking forward to the live discussion later in the session, and I hope technology will allow me to participate. I will give just a short overview on where the American Chemical Society is in regards of transformative agreements such as read and publish. But is this road alone stable enough to really move us forward, to fundamentally change the system? With an example, I would like to show the complexity and the limits of transformative agreements. But let's look at the success first. ACS strongly prolongs the path with read and publish. Authors from institutions in the UK and Germany, Netherlands, Finland, Hungary, US, just to name a few, are now able to publish via an ACS read and publish agreement in their well-known hybrid and in some parts as well in gold journals. ACS has also developed a clear, transparent model to support this transition. Offers are adapted to respective individual situations of the facilities or the institutions. A big challenge are, of course, situations where the output of an institution does not really correlate in any way with the financial possibilities. In such situations, many compromises have to be made on both sides. But when these compromises are found, transformative agreements have an astonishing effect on the open access output, which can be seen very well in the graph on the right side. In most cases, we see an uptake of over 90% on open access. For us, of course, this is not least due to the workflows that we have developed together with CCC, among others. These workflows are intuitive for the author and transparent and easy to control for the institutions. Feedback we received on a regular basis, and attempts are made to implement them in order to further optimize these workflows. But is this enough? To illustrate the complexity, I went to the Horizon 2020 dashboard. The data of the dashboard is based on dimensions. Horizon 2020 is a scientific funding program from the European Union and is a signatory of Coalition S, actually. Unlike some national funders, it is in the nature of things that the grantees are spread across various institutions and countries. I have to say I have not cleaned up the data, but even so, I think you can clearly see where the challenge lies. The output is split over 40,000 institutions in over 240 countries or regions. At the rate we walk the path right now, closing up deals with consortia or national-wide read and publish agreements per year, it will take us years to succeed. So I will close my short talk with the following. We need an additional path to achieve the goal of transformation, and that can, in my opinion, only lie in direct agreements with funders. This was really just a rush through to that, and I'm now very much looking forward for any comments or questions and the discussion later on.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Ruhi. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships at PLOS, and I'm delighted to give you an update on PLOS's experimentation with non-APC models, particularly as relates to infrastructure. So I'm going to focus mostly on our community action publishing program, and happy to take questions when we wrap up. So the first question to answer is, what is community action publishing? To recap, the purpose of PLOS Community Action Publishing is to help demonstrate that highly selective publishing can be made open access without exorbitantly high APCs, or indeed any APCs. We do this in a couple of ways, and the pieces that go down the slide here are going to speak to specific infrastructure that you would need to make this a success. So the first is that we're public about our costs and our margins. This is not something I'm super familiar with many other publishers doing. We think it's imperative for any kind of collective model to have this level of transparency. That said, it does require quite a bit of internal work to come to those numbers in a way that makes sense and then to be able to share them. We additionally had to determine the universe of institutions that we'd want to participate, and that requires a lot of heavy lifting around institutional disambiguation, as well as identifying corresponding and contributing authors. We then assign tiers based on publishing history, and any institution that participates basically gets unlimited publishing for the duration in exchange for that one annual fee. And we've made, again, all of our fees transparent. You'll see it's a very wide range from tier 12 or read institutions that have a very low likelihood of ever publishing, all the way to research-intensive institutions that publish frequently in these titles. Research for Life countries are automatically members of the all three collectives, and that's got some infrastructure related to it in that your systems need to be able to recognize institutional affiliations, as well as country location to trigger the Research for Life inclusivity. And then when the each community for each journal meets its revenue target, any additional revenue is redistributed to members at renewal. And that is actually going to be some of the most interesting pieces for us to figure out because of how to do that and how to do that in a way that's transparent. So that is going to come in the next 18 months or so. There are a number of things that are unique about the model that have made it a success, but really speak to needing infrastructure to support it. So the first is just a new approach to cost recovery and transparency, and the resulting redistribution of excess revenue. The approach to author contributions, the model looks at both corresponding and contributing author affiliation. That exponentially increases your institutional disambiguation and author disambiguation challenges, which is significant. The approach to transparency with our partners really resulted in kind of an iterative process that was incredibly valuable to the success of the model, but it's obviously more work as you have more institutions that are providing feedback. And then lastly, one of the important innovations here is that their sustainability is a core component of the model, thanks to how it's been structured to have fail-safes. And one such fail-safe is this particular model has two revenue streams. So the community participants are paying an annual fee, but the individual authors from institutions that are not participants pay a non-member fee. So in the spirit of a collective action effort, there are sticks for participating, and there are carrots for participating, and there are sticks for not participating. And the non-member fees are very much intended to encourage institutional members. They are not intended to penalize authors. So what you need to sort of do this kind of work really speaks to the quality of your system. So these are kind of the innovations that we brought to the model, and this is what we kind of needed to make it work. So this question of redistribution of excess revenue, obviously that has big implications for accounting and finance, how the revenue is recognized, how it impacts our annual audit, which is critical, and then thinking through how the redistribution is going to work when we re-tier everyone when the 3-year initial pilot term is up. Additionally, the question around institutional disambiguation is going to impact every part of the business, from authors submitting all the way through to authors closing a transaction with us, either as a community member or not. So a lot of your systems internally have to facilitate both the institutional disambiguation through tools like Roar or Ringgold, but also the author name disambiguation. Lastly, to do these models, or not second to last, you need to be able to communicate how they work. And there's a lot of complexity in how the models are built. Our proposal documents, for example, really walk through line by line how this work was done. But then you also need to be able to roll up that explanation into something concise and quick for institutions and consortia that don't have infinite time. So you need a dedicated sales support infrastructure that can fluently explain the essentials of the models without bogging folks down in unnecessarily detail, understanding that that detail is there for folks who want absolute transparency in how the model works. And then lastly, the multiple sort of revenue streams definitely are a benefit, in that the depending on whether the model works or not, no one is left in the lurch. But at the same time, there's a lot on the accounting side that has to be taken into account to make this this kind of model make sense. So really, that's it. In summation, these new models work, but the infrastructure required for a seamless both author experience and library experience is significant. And thanks to solutions in the case of PLOS like Editorial Manager and Copyright Clearance Center's RightsLink platform, we are absolutely getting there, but there's still much work to do. Thank you.